Hey, what's going on, Mission Hills? Welcome back to the Continuing the Conversation feed here on our Messages channel. You're back with your host, Colin, and
I'm Craig.
And we're happy to have you, man. I noticed maybe you needed
to be back.
A little bit of a caffeine pickup here in front of you here.
Mountain Dew, yeah. Yeah, you know what? I actually am very new to coffee. I was never a coffee
you've taken
guy.
the dive.
I have taken the dive, but I still do. I do some Mountain Dew still, and this was I've just been traveling a lot. My body's confused about what time it is, and I'm just feeling really tired. So a little extra caffeine this morning. But I had my latte this morning, and then I had a regular size can of Mountain Dew, and now I'm having a small size can of Mountain Dew.
I was gonna say that's how we know that our executive admin and our staff loves you, is we have switched you from the big cans over to the small cans because we care about you.
Yeah, in theory. Although the reality is that I have such a great admin. Lindsay is amazing, and one of her amazingnesses is that she has a little tiny refrigerator on her desk that just has Mountain Dew for me, and it makes me feel loved and cared for.
So at the risk of you being the head pastor, people wanting to sometimes gift you with things, you've talked about some weird stuff you got in the past. What is your coffee order? You might get 2,000 of them this coming weekend now sitting on your desk waiting for
actually,
you.
I'm a latte guy.
Okay.
And I'll tell you what happened, actually. I was with my kids, and I made the mistake of mocking them for putting a bunch of sugar in their coffee. And they're like, "Do you have any idea how much is in a Mountain Dew?" And I was like, "Well, no. I mean,
that's not the question.
I mean, there's a number, but I don't know what that means." And so they're like, "Okay, here's how many packets of sugar I have to put in a Mountain Dew in my coffee to equal your Mountain Dew." And when I saw the stack, it was really alarming.
Oh, I bet.
And so I was like, "Okay, I need to try to cut that back." So it used to be that I would do 2 Mountain Dews a day. Or 3, it's not
depending on where you're at.
But 2 is where I was aiming for, and I was like, I'm going to cut one of those out and replace it with a latte. So that's my coffee order. It's a latte.
Is it the only sugar vice in your life, or are you kind of a sweet tooth kind of a guy?
I mean, I like desserts and sweets. I don't think I'm probably not like constantly going after sugar. I'm more of a chips guy.
Yeah,
that's
crunchy, salty.
Crunchy, salty, and crunchy is the key.
Yes,
really like crunchy.
That's the world I live in too. If I am the weirdo. If I never had another dessert as long as I live, I would be totally fine. Which is really a bummer because my wife Emily is one of the great bakers on this side of Colorado.
I have received some of her baked goods. You are not wrong.
Yes, the staff is often blessed because she will bake 24 cookies, and I'll have half of one at home. I'm like, that's my quota, and she's like, well, what do we do with the other 23 of them? So often the staff gets them here. But I want to talk to you a little bit about how you structured, kind of as we wound down Unshakable here. I thought it was really cool how you started off with kind of these external forces of the storm, and you kind of ended with these internal patterns. What kind of helped you begin and end there? I know that you structured this stuff out super intentionally, so I was hoping you could help us walk through that, because it was a long series to get from A to B.
Yeah, it was a long series.
Which was really cool.
But yeah, I mean, the nice thing about it was because we weren't like in one passage, or one book. And I don't mind doing that. Some people really, that's what they want, like preach a whole the way through a book. And sometimes the books are so long, and I'm like, I don't know that I want to be in this book for a year or 2 years, which is what you'd have to do. Not that there's anything wrong with that. It's just not necessarily my style. But I do often like to do sections of Scripture. This one would have been a long section of Scripture. But the reason that I went so long and felt good about it was just because it's kind of different stories. It was expository in the sense that each week was a passage, but it was different stories, different passages, and so that allowed for the variety. But as far as the sequence, I actually wrestled with it a little bit, because I was like, well, do I start with the internal struggles and then move to the external ones, or do we start with the external ones and then move to the internal ones? And I think it could go either direction. I don't think there's necessarily a right or wrong. The reason I ended on the internal one is because I think sometimes we get so fixated on these things that happen to us, and like, how am I going to handle it when this happens, or when this takes place? What's my right response? That we just overlook the fact that actually it's these internal conditions and these patterns, like we were talking about this week, that actually determine how impactful the external stuff is.
Interesting.
And so I thought if I start with the internal stuff and then go to the external stuff, it might. There might actually be some resistance, some mental resistance to that. So I thought, well, now let's actually start with the external stuff, and then we'll kind of sneak back. Well, it was almost a little bit of an unexpected, like, hey, we've been talking about all this, but honestly, if you really want to deal with all that the way we've talked about it, this is the issue you're going to have to get a handle on first. And so I don't know that it was necessarily the best way to do it, but I did think about, let's end on the internal. Because I think once you get the internal stuff, then all the other stuff, there's coat hangers. You can kind of hang all that other stuff on.
Well, it's interesting. It's almost kind of like a dichotomy where you've moved from a area of easier to recognize stuff. It's oftentimes easier to recognize the stuff in our environment, but stuff we have less control over, to stuff that is harder to recognize, but stuff that we have more control over. So I like kind of the warm up in the congregation to going,
Yeah, and that's a good way to say it. Yeah, that's what I was trying to get at with the idea that I kind of sneak it in. I think if you start with the internal stuff, there's the guards just go, well, I don't have a problem with that, or like I don't see it, or but the external stuff, it's safer. It feels less personal somehow, and so like, oh yeah, it's just practical. I just need to do this or this, and then you sneak up on this idea that it really it's all about the heart condition first. So yeah, it's maybe that the internal stuff's a little harder to recognize. So Emily Dickinson said, "Tell the truth, but tell it slant. The truth must dazzle gradually, lest every man be blind." And I've always loved that. And so I've often thought about preaching that way. Like I want to say the hard truth if, God's said it in his word, but is there a way we can sneak up on it? Or is there a way that we can talk about it in such a way that somebody kind of looks up and goes, oh, wait a minute, we're dealing with this deep heart issue, but I didn't realize that at first. I think that's much more effective sometimes.
That's cool how you talk about moving around the guardrails a little bit too. We can see that with, we kind of ended on the story of Moses and, God's like, I'm going to use you. He's like, but I can't, I'm not great at talking. So these guardrails immediately come up that we can see in this character that, we have this really kind of exonified, perception of them throughout the Bible. I was hoping we could push into a little bit. You have, remind me of the phrase here. It's patterns reveal.
Pressure reveals our patterns.
Pressure reveals the patterns here. So I thought that was so good because, honestly, we're not trying to get into the promised land of being chased away by giants on a day-to-day basis, literally. But, oftentimes, we got cut off in traffic and, patterns start to resurface. Do you have anything in your life that you've kind of taken into account where you're like, hey, I've noticed these patterns about me and here's kind of a little 1, 2, 3-step process that I've been able to apply to it over the years where I'm able to kind of, move away from those patterns, stifle the patterns, anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, hands down, my quickest pattern is when I'm under pressure, I get sharp. Yeah, my words aren't as thoughtful, they're not as considered, so I end up saying things. Either saying things that I really probably shouldn't have said at all, or I sang them in ways that I shouldn't have said them at all. In fact, I think you and I have talked about the idea that like when you have margin in your life, it's like the shocks in a car.
Yep.
And you can hit a speed bump and you're fine, but if there's no margin in the car, if the shocks are maxed out, you hit a speed bump, like the car's going to drag, and the first thing to come off when a car drags is the muffler. So for me, it's just my mouth. What comes out of my mouth, the unmuffled version of Craig, that's the quickest. It's the quickest indicator that okay, I do not have enough margin in my life. I'm under pressure, and my pattern is that I speak sharply. I speak things that I shouldn't have said. So, I wish I could say I've just mastered that. I haven't. That's still a natural thing. But what I have started to discover that is helpful is simply just knowing that and going into conversations going, hey, Craig, you're under pressure. I'm talking to myself a little bit, right? Yeah. Hey, Craig, you're under pressure. And you know that when you're under pressure, this is the pattern that tends to get squeezed out. So awareness is half the battle, right? There's this old phrase in certain circles of Christianity called name it and claim it.
Yep.
Just name it and then you can take it for yourself, right? So name that you want money and you can take it for yourself. Name that you want power, you can take it for yourself. And you get it kind of in the health, wealth, gospel movement. Definitely do not believe in name it, claim it. I do believe in name it, tame it.
Oh, there we go.
And that is when you recognize this thing, you call it out even in your own heart and mind. So, Craig, this is your pattern. It's not a good pattern, right? So you're naming it. And the more that I live in an awareness of that, the more I can go into those conversations, and I'm just a lot less likely to do it. So it's the forethought. It's the preparation before I go into these places where I see the patterns emerge to go, okay, just being aware of it, just naming it gives me some ability to keep it from happening unconsciously.
Yeah.
Yeah. Same thing when I'm in traffic. Traffic's the number one place that I feel like my sanctification is just always in jeopardy, right? When I'm in traffic.
I don't know who gets closer to the Lord in traffic, honestly.
Maybe not anybody close to the Lord, but some of us find ourselves getting further. But when I can get in my car and go, hey, I'm I'm stressed. It's been a long day and I feel pressure. I am probably going to think some things or maybe say some things out loud. Nobody else is going to hear them, but Jesus hears them, right? And that's not who I want to be, right? Even when I'm by myself, that's not who I want to be. So getting into the car and telling myself, hey, you've been under a lot of pressure today. You're a little stressed. You're probably not going to be patient with the people around you. That makes a difference. It's just that awareness, name it, tame it, and then, it's been on the lookout for it more than anything else. It's not deep stuff. It's just be on the lookout for it.
You know what? Sometimes practical doesn't have to be deep. I got a follow up for that for you. You've talked about the importance of community kind of in the support in that. How, before you recognize that in you, how much sooner can Coletta recognize it in you? Because I figure, and maybe a couple friends and mentors, because it's important to have community around you. I just want to know if you've been able to shorten that a little bit. Because I know in my life, my patterns will emerge. And I'm always like, you okay? You seem stressed. I'm like, oh, I seem fine. She's like, well, you're doing this, that, and the other. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, definitely Coletta sees it before I recognize it,
Which is important.
And I'm exactly the way you are. My first response is, "That's not true." I wasn't
guardrails
sharp.
are coming up.
I wasn't sure. What's your problem, right? Now you're the one who had the problem, Coletta. And no, she's right.
Yep.
My executive team, same way. We've been working together for 9 years now for most of us, and I think they're at that place where they can kind of go, "You seem like you're on edge. You seem like you're charging hard. Maybe there's something else going on." So yeah, that community is a really big piece of it. It's weird to me that other people can see in us, people who know us well can see in us things that we're slower to recognize. Yeah. I don't know why that is. I feel like I'm inside me. I should know it before anybody else does, but I don't.
It's just a good mirroring of kind of how you walked us through this Unshakable series. I think, oftentimes in our lives we're the last people to see these things, these patterns that need to change in us, while, all this exterior force and these people around us are really rooting for us and kind of helping with it. So I think that was just a really cool, practical reflection of kind of how to walk through this, kind of pillars of faith throughout the sermon series that you had here. Yeah. That was good. And I don't know. I think this is the first one you and I have shot down here. So the people that are watching online, if you're listening right now, I would highly recommend you go over to either YouTube or Spotify. You can get the video there. But our video production master, Zach, has set up what could be the coolest set I've ever been a part of. This is unbelievable. Yeah. We, in thinking about Christmas this year, we talked about how we would love young families to join us this year as kind of our target audience. Everybody for sure, but they're kind of our target. And what we came to the conclusion with that is we'd love to pursue a little bit of nostalgia. And this was a point of not contention, but it was kind of a confusing point because, what decade does nostalgia fall in? And we landed on, brace yourselves, elder millennials, the 90s is where nostalgia starts to hit.
Is that what we did here?
Yeah. I mean, this is very much, we got a little Sega running over here. We got a tape deck. I mean, this is kind of this is a buddy's house I could have been in, in the 90s.
The 90s. Wow. So a weird thing about me that I haven't told many people, I don't have any nostalgia.
The gene is missing.
Yeah, you know it, but most people don't. I think it's because I moved every few years as an Air Force kid, and I had a leadership coach tell me at one point that it's actually pretty common among military kids.
Interesting.
That they sort of like, well, your hope is in the future, because if it's in the present's probably going to change. You're gonna have to leave your friends and start over again, and so you're always kind of thinking towards like that. That's sort of where the anticipation is well, what's next? So yeah, somewhere along the lines though, I didn't get the nostalgia gene. So if the movie's more than a few years old, I'm kind of like, I don't know, I like that. If the music more than 10 years old, that's about if it's a decade earlier, I'm like, There's a couple of exceptions, but they're exceptions for very specific reasons, and they're not nostalgic. Like, little geek out moment. Eric Johnson. You know Eric Johnson?
I don't.
Guitar player.
Okay.
Probably late 80s, early 90s. One song in particular called Cliffs of Dover. Cleanest, most powerful guitar rock thing ever. That guy I can totally jam out to that. But it's not really nostalgia. It's just an appreciation of the technical side of it. Like most of the music I grew up with, I'm like, yeah, I don't like that much anymore. I can hear it and go, okay, that's fine, but there's no nostalgia. So, yeah, I don't know.
I would imagine as an artist too, you probably appreciate. You're like, I recognize that this is well done, well made, well received. But you're like, it's just I've moved on.
Although I grew up in the '80s, and honestly, the '80s is a little bit. I know, like
The
Danny,
extra rebellion, man.
Yeah, Danny, our weekend experience exec pastor would not be happy to hear me say this, but I think the '80s was a little bit of a musical wasteland.
I hope Zach has the door locked. He might be coming through right now trying to correct that.
That would really hurt his soul to hear me say, but he probably ain't gonna listen to this anyway, so it's fine. But yeah, like I look at most of the music from the '80s, and I'm like, that was not our best era. There was some weird stuff going on in the '80s. It was like in the '80s we were starting to figure out electronica. Mm-hmm. So and you know how anytime you got some new thing, you're like, oh, we got to use that on everything.
Yeah.
And like we didn't
overuse it.
It wasn't
probably
that good yet. You couldn't do really cool stuff. It's weird Casio keyboard kind of sounds but they were everywhere. And I'm like, there was some great stuff, but yeah, it was. So anyway, I don't know that we're on the little tangent, but no, I wasn't sure what our nostalgia. We're going for the '90s. Okay,
yeah. This is my perfect lead in here. So I mean, we're looking back at the nostalgia with all of this like fond memory and stuff. But we talked about kind of how the Israelites were not able to enter the Promised Land, and they kind of had this lack of recognition of all the stuff that they were kind of given in the past. They were worried about these giants that were in there, but God had delivered them from an army, and He had provided food, and He had presented Himself as these pillars of smoke and fire. I was gonna talk to you a little bit, and you were the perfect person to ask about this with the lacking of the nostalgia gene. How is it that we as Christians can do a good job of kind of like doing a good remembrance of all that God has blessed us with, especially in the holiday season here as we are coming up here. Holiday season can be tough for some people with loss and all sorts of other things. And I know you've done a lot of care and counseling in your past. So what are some pieces that we can bring with us on remembrance of the good that God has done for us?
Yeah, so I've had to be really intentional about it because, and maybe it is related to the nostalgia thing, I just don't look back much.
Yeah.
And so I can easily forget. And then what happens is I get into seasons where I can actually react a lot like the Israelites, and I catastrophize. Like I don't think we're going to get through this. There's no way to get forward from this. There's no way to get over this hurdle or this obstacle. Actually, I mean, just even in the last couple of weeks, to be really real with you, the church has grown a lot, and so we're trying to figure out like what does it look like to move to this next phase, and how do we? There's some restructuring going on, and there's a couple of hires we're looking at, and they're disruptive potentially hires, partly just because they're new people, even on the executive team, and just some stuff changing, and it kind of has to happen. We can't keep going the way we have, but like. There are hurdles in that process, and navigating it and managing change and people and all that. It's difficult, and I have found myself going, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to pull this off. I'm not sure I'm going to get through these issues, and it's just because I've forgotten. Like honestly, God's already walked with me and led me through probably much more significant problem. And honestly, a lot of the problems we're facing, most pastors would be thrilled to have these problems.
Right.
But it doesn't mean they're not challenges. And it doesn't mean you don't find yourself thinking, I'm inadequate for this particular challenge. But it's not about me, right? And so here's what I've had to do. I've had to just be really deliberate. Like, so I've moved everything to Notion in my life right now, and so
Great tool.
Notion, I have a big to-do list, and I've got it auto-generate a series of questions for the end of my day, and I go through, and one of them is, where did you see God's faithfulness today? And those actually, it grabs and pulls into another list so that I can just go in and look at that list and go, okay, God did this and this and this and this. And when you look back over a year and you start to go, oh, wow, God has done a lot of stuff, you start to go, okay, maybe going forward, he's going to be on the job, right? Yeah. We do another thing at Christmas.
I was just going to bring this up. I was like, I hope it's okay I bring up a family tradition here, but you guys do one of the coolest things.
Yeah, and we started this years ago when the kids were little, and I can't remember how we got there, but so Clud has really beautiful Christmas trees, and then we have the family Christmas tree. And for some reason, our family has a lot of bizarre ornaments. And my mom has given some ornaments, and different people have, and kids made ornaments. But there's more than I can really account for. And sometimes we're going through. We're like, what is this? Like, where did this come from? And we don't even know. But what we do is we have all these weird ornaments, and they provide this really neat opportunity. So nobody puts anything on the tree apart from pulling up an ornament and going, hey, this reminds me about this thing that God has done, this way God's been faithful, this way God's cared for us, provided for this opportunity God's given us. And so it might be something like as simple as the golden retriever ornament. And we're really thankful for the pets that God's allowed us to have, or a musical instrument. Oh, I'm thankful for those years when we were doing worship ministry and we got to see it change from traditional to contemporary worship in most churches, and we got to kind of be on the ground floor of those kinds of things, or very specific things that we've seen God do that year. It's actually become a really deep time and meaningful time as each one of us puts an ornament on and shares something. And a lot of times it's over this past year. This reminds me of what God did this year and here. And so we get to hear about that, and it's that celebration. And then there's just a moment at the end, a very simple prayer. God, thank you for all these things. And then the tree's there throughout the season, and we see the ornaments and we remember those things. And so it's a little bit of the Hebrew tradition of putting up an Ebenezer, which is a stone of remembrance. We just have a tree of remembrance with some really weird ornaments, but they speak to very significant things that we've seen God do in the past 12 months.
That's so cool. I love that. Emily and I, a couple of years ago, started doing this thing where on our anniversary, we don't have an anniversary anymore. We have our family's birthday. And we have a jar in our kitchen where anytime anything good happens throughout the years, somebody will write it on a sticky note and we put it in the jar. And then on the family's birthday, we'll have a big cake. Our son's 5, so we've been doing it. Her and I have been married for 10 years, but we've been doing it for 5, ever since our little guy was born. This is the first year that he kind of remembered things. And so you have the cake, and then you come out and you read all the stuff from the past year, which I really appreciate. That's because so cool. I've had 5 concussions, so my memory is not always awesome. And so it's amazing how many of these we pull out of the jar. I'm like, that was awesome. I forgot about that. And so that's, but like you said, it's this really intentional time that we sit down and we're like, God did something good. I want to take a moment and honor him with that. And then being able to kind of carry that through. So I love that during the holiday season, you guys are kind of able to do that as well. It's been a really special part of our year too.
Yeah. I just think you have to be deliberate about it. I mean, it's the crazy thing is, like, for the Israelites, like, I'm pretty sure when the sea parted and they walked through on dry ground and with the walls of water on either side, I'm pretty sure they're like, we are never forgetting this. And yet the moment that the giant showed up, they're like, I think we're going to die, right? I just think it's when you see God provide, it's so easy to go, like, how could I ever forget this?
Yeah. And sure enough.
But we do. And that's why you have to have some system, right? Whether it's journaling or, something more abstract like a Christmas tree, or I've shared that outside of our house, we built a little stone of remembrance that every time we drive by it, we see it and remember how God led us there. And we kind of built it as the kids were heading off to college. But you've got to have something deliberate, I think. You can't rely on your memory. And it may not be that you've forgotten what God did. You've just forgotten how significant it is and how it should inform the way you're thinking about going forward in faith.
It's Emily and I have noticed too, it really helps us as we face challenges coming up. You see these big challenges, the giants in the promised land. You're like, oh no, God parted the Red Sea. And then you're able to read through these things. You're like, no, that was big. I'm sure the wall of water on either side of the Israelites walking through the dry ground was many times taller than the giants that they were seeing. But it's really helped us too, with foresight into the future, thinking about the problems that we are currently facing or going to face coming up, going, no, it's not that big. Yeah. It's a good juxtaposition for us being able to be like, no, he did that. He's able to do this. So it's changed our perspective a lot too. Yeah. Which is good.
That's awesome.
Kind of heading into the holiday season, Craig, can you give us like just a little, we are not formally announcing Christmas on a large scale until I think coming up after Thanksgiving here, but we're kicking off the sermon series and we're going to have invites out and everything, but we are hitting full-fledged Christmas here coming up. Can you give us just a little 30,000-foot overview of what the holiday season, the Christmas season is going to look like here?
Yeah. So we're gonna walk through Matthew 1 and 2, chapters 1 and 2, the birth account. And so we'll do a verse by verse kind of breakdown of that, including the genealogy. And I've taught on the genealogy before, but I realized there's some other stuff that I'd missed there that it's pretty clear that God's bringing out. So the weekend after Thanksgiving, we'll launch with a story about Jacob. Was it Judah and his brothers? That's the phrase. Judah and his brothers. So we're going to tell the story of Judah and his brothers and why they're in that Christmas, the beginning of the Christmas story, really. And then we'll walk through chapters 1 and 2, and we're going to be using the traditional Advent themes. Joy, peace, love, those kinds, and faith, and we're going to do them in the traditional sequence. And so basically, we're using each of those themes as a little bit of a lens, and it's remarkable. I kind of thought, could we do this? What would it require? And then I went and looked at the passages. And each one of those, maybe that's why the themes exist in that order, because each one of those passages was deeply connected to that specific theme for the week. Mm-hmm. So maybe that's where the Advent sequence came from. I don't know.
Oh, interesting.
But it's not like you're forcing it into or having to do any kind of like dancing around. You're like, oh no, this passage is absolutely about joy. On the week that the Advent theme says we're going to do joy. So yeah, we're going to walk through Matthew 1 and 2 using the Advent themes as a lens.
That's going to be awesome.
Yeah, it's going to be fun.
And you guys are going to hear this 10,000 times. At the Littleton campus, we have 7 identical candlelight services here, and then we also have...
I think we have 6, don't we?
Isn't it 2 on the 23rd, 5 on the 24th?
So 4 and 6 on the 23rd, and then
10 noon.
10, 12,
2,
4, 6. Yeah, I guess it is 7. Is that right?
I hope so. I've been,
okay.
I'm one of the lead creatives on Christmas this year, and I can't tell you how many stuff I've ordered with those 7 times on it. So I'm hoping at this point that's right.
For some reason in my head, though, we were doing 6, not 7, but I guess we did 7 last year. And the question was, do we need to go to 8? Mm-hmm. That was the question. I was thinking we did 6, and maybe we need to go to 7, but we did 7. We need to go to 8. That's
good problems to have, right?
It's good problems to have.
But this is an exciting year too, because our Castle Rock campus and our North Littleton campus are both doubling up, so they're going to 2 services this year too. So if you guys call Mission Hills Church your home, or you're looking for a church this holiday season, we would love to have you guys coming up on either the 23rd and 24th at Littleton, or the 24th at Castle Rock, North Littleton, and Espanol. But in the meantime, if you guys have any questions, please email us at info@missionhills.org. We would love to answer those for you guys, especially coming into the holiday season here. We've got all sorts of good resources for you guys, whether you have questions about faith. We've got an awesome grief share event coming up if the holidays are a little bit of a struggle, and you can always email us at prayer@missionhills.org. It's not just Craig and I that sees those. Our entire staff gets a list of the prayers that come in, whether anonymous or not, every week, and we're able to pray for those. So we want to be here for you guys, and we're really happy to have you back.
Yep. Good to be back and not traveling for a while.
We'll see you guys.
Bless.
This podcast is hosted by Colin McFarland along with Craig Smith. We are mixed, edited, and produced by Zach Anderson. Our creative director is Colin McFarland. Maddie Brower is our SEO and copy specialist. The Continuing the Conversation feed is part of the Mission Hills Podcast Network in Littleton, Colorado, and available for download wherever you get your audio and video podcasts. Thanks for listening.